How we doing, guys? How about how we doing? All right. So we are going to continue down. Now that you're well fed, we're going to continue with our day. So we're going to kick off this afternoon with a nice workshop by our three colleagues here. I think I'm going to jump in on something. So put your hands together for Brandon Alien on drums. Put your hands together for Dave Monsey on bass. And put your hands together for Kenny Withrow on guitar and piano and leadership. You want a microphone to start? You want to play first?
I want to go ahead and play.
All right, cool. Microphone's here when you're ready.
Withrow. I got to actually teach some of you fine students out there for a little bit at the charter school at the Cedar School, and so I have just a little bit of association here with the new school. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you very much, Richard, for inviting me and inviting us, and getting to play a little bit for you guys and share a little bit of our experience with you. And like I said, my name's Kenny Withrow. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm a guitar player, and kind of known for playing. Brandon and I played with Nita Raquel, New Bohemians. It's a band that's been out for many, many years. Kind of came out in the late 80s. And we have a couple songs that some of you might have heard. Y'all are awfully young, so. But this is a blues and jazz camp, so I want to share a little bit ways that blues, jazz in particular, has influenced songwriting. Because I'm not necessarily a jazz player, or not a jazz player at all, in like the real sense. Play jazz music exclusively. And we got to go to the Arts Magnet High School, so I did study some jazz in high school. Brandon, Ailey, and I went to the Arts Magnet High School in Dallas. And after that, we went on to the Richland College, where the director was Paul Guerrero, and we both played in the jazz band.
Great drummer.
Great drummer, played with Stan Getz and lots of different people. But the reason I'm getting into this is because when we were playing in the jazz band, we would have these jams. A lot of times we would play in the lunchroom. And after these recitals, the jam would start. And we would start doing these improvising. And these were kind of the kernels. A lot of these jams and these get-togethers turned into New Bohemians, which turned into the band. And so yeah, so we kind of learned our stuff at Arts Magnet from improvising. There was a group called Bill Lacerda that came and did a clinic at Arts Magnet, and they were completely improvised group. And what they were was like a symphonic combo, if you can imagine that. They had all the sections of a symphony: percussion, woodwinds, brass, and the other one, strings. And they would improvise. They'd have one instrument for each section, and they would fully improvise. And so we were in the audience, and they were kind of making up, we didn't know what was going on. They were kind of making up complete pieces. And somebody sneezed in the audience. And so the cello player sneezed. And then the percussion player sneezed. And they had a sneezing jam. And us young, it was just like, so that opened my mind of like what music is, what is a theme, what is a musical idea? And that's just wide open. So that kind of opened my mind and our minds at that school to what music is. And so we learned some jazz, even though we're not jazz players, and learned to adapt things into our creative realm without necessarily being like that. So that's something I wanted to sort of pass on. Maybe some of you do want to be jazz players. That's amazing. It's an amazing way to play, and it's an amazing endeavor. But also there's being a working musician. And some of it is writing songs. If you're in a band and you're not writing the songs, you're in a cover band. Kind of. I mean, pretty much you are. So I always encourage people to start writing early, start writing little ideas, even if you're a horn player. If you're writing the songs in the band, you're ahead of the game. And that's how you can do well in this world. So that's a whole lot, but that's why I'm here. I wanted to share some of that as far as getting into songwriting and being a sponge for all of your influences around you, and then just filter that out. So let's see what we got here. We're gonna play one more song. I broke a string, that's why I changed guitars. Can't believe I broke a string on that. It's very, very unusual. I'll probably have to go ahead and fix that in a minute, but I can play this guitar for this next song. All right, so that first song is a song called Ode to Muskie. And it was written, John Bush, the percussionist in the band, and I used to go to the Bar Rock Lake, which is in Dallas, every day and play music while the sun went down. And this one particular summer, there was a poor little muskrat that had met his demise, and he was, and we would see him every day by the water. And we just saw it slowly go through his process through the whole summer. Kind of gross, sorry. But we wrote this song, Ode to Muskie, so that's what that was. That was a little ode to that little guy. So this is a song called Freeway. My guitars are tuned different, so that's why the extra tune had this second guitar. So, Mr. Don, was there any questions you want to ask related to this? Or is there any?
Yes, I have two
Great,
questions.
great.
All right. I have one question for each of you, and then I have a question for you specifically, which these guys can chime in on. So maybe I'll start with the first question, the second question first. Oh, okay. In your bio, I read something very interesting, in that from the days of Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians, your bio specifies a concept of improvisational readiness. And I'd like you to talk about that. Talk about the concept of improvisational readiness. If you guys want to chime in, you're welcome to chime in. So, but I think that's a really interesting thing, because I think that Joe Morales, who might be in here now, mentions today how we improvise all the time, right? Like you're doing with the string, like you're improvising at this moment, as you, for example. But we improvise all the time, driving and whatever. Everything we do is improvisation, right? In a way. But we're not necessarily talking about that. But you know, where today is kind of a theme of the breadth of improvisation. Yeah. So you mentioned I've never heard anyone in all these decades. Even though I think it all the time, even as a player, I'm thinking all the time, how can I be ready to improvise in any situation and musically, and what will it take to get to that? So, since that's associated with you, from my perspective at this moment, I'd like to just and I'll just hold, wait for the string. Check this out, improvisation.
Well, a lot of that comes from, in New Bohemians, we improvise song form.
Yes, indeed.
And Edie, as a singer, can improvise melody and lyrics as well.
Great.
So, you know, we need to be willing to do any sort of genre of music to go anywhere, because she gets bored, man. And she wants to hear some stuff. So you can't play the same old chord progression. You can't play the same old groove. She can do anything from a Talking Heads groove that's one chord to like a complex chord progression if she hears it once, or you can even do it together. But yeah, as far as readiness, that's been my whole thing as a player.
Yes, sir.
I want to be prepared for every situation.
Yes, exactly.
And you know, I don't have time to be the best jazz player or even the best shredder guitar player, but I am a songwriter who wants to represent all, you know, amalgamize all the different genres together.
Nice. And so is there a specific kind of, besides the ideology, is there any technique or any mindset or specific that you can maybe show the students as far as improvisational readiness? That might apply to you, that might apply to the situation that you have learned or whatever?
Yeah, I would say just to approach music and art in a way where there are no boundaries. There is no good and bad as far as I'm concerned in art. If somebody likes something, then there's something good about it. And my job is to find out what that is. Even if it's not my kind of music. I may not care for it, but it can still be good, amazing even. So the things you don't even like can be amazing, and that can be an opening doorway for you. And that can make you open to play anything while you're playing. You can say yes to yourself. That's number one. You got to say yes to yourself so you can continue. So that's the starting point.
I love it. Any other musical thoughts? You don't have to have any necessarily. These guys may have a thought about it too.
Those guys are,
Yeah, I'll add to that.
Yeah, that's great. This is fantastic stuff, man. So I love it. You got a big old voice, sounds like.
Yeah. So what I wanted to add to what Kenny was saying, since we come up from the same school, you know, we played together our whole lives, is what is improv? You know, a lot of people, I think, maybe are thinking when you say improvisation, they think, oh, well, when the band gets to the solo section in a song, then the horn player will take an improvised solo. So that is correct, and that does happen all the time, but I think for us, we like to approach the whole of everything as one big improv, instead of just narrowing it down to, you know, improvisation based around a solo, a guitar solo, or whatever. If you notice, we have music stands up here. You know, there's a water and a phone, and I think he's got some little breath mints or something on his. We don't have any music, so we all, you know how to read music, and we will read a chart if it's necessary, and we'll write a chart if it's necessary. But as far as these songs that we've been playing for you today, there's a roadmap that we all agree upon, and then everything else that you're hearing us do is sort of a conversation that we're carrying on that could turn in any direction at any point. So we don't know a lot of times, you know, that's why we're always looking at each other and we're listening.
You might be able to hear that, but we don't know. There's points.
You might be able to hear we don't know what we're doing. Yeah. So that's kind of one of the things I really wanted to just kind of make a point about, is that we have a roadmap for these songs. We know what key it's in, we know the general feel, and we played several of them together before, but we didn't rehearse, you know, to come and present a polished thing to you. It was more to show you what it's like when you have a group of musicians that are just sort of having a musical conversation. And so it's a wonderful thing when you have the opportunity to do that as a musician, and you're not having to hold to the strict standards of learning a song exactly the way the record was. And so we're always grateful for the opportunity to do that.
Nice. And I like what you said. We're always improvising.
Yeah.
We just are.
Right.
Yeah, we're always improvising. And so I mean, whether you like it or not, you're improvising. Even to try to do something exactly the same way twice, you're going to figure out that you are a human, that we aren't exact. Try to recreate something exactly twice. You're improvising. We always are improvising. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Brandon, anything to add?
Dave.
Dave. Not yet? All right, so I'll ask the next question for you. This is my other question for the three of you guys. So, one of our themes at camp is Jazz and Blues Camp, and one of our questions that we're exploring throughout the weekend in general terms is why jazz and blues matter, both in general terms or personally. So I asked you, Dave, why jazz and blues matters to you.
It's the sort of fundamental American music. I think of that, I would describe that as American. I would say that's American music, you know, and that's the music that I've grown up listening to, and as I get older, I try to mind it more deeply, you know, go more into the tradition of it, and that's, and then there's also like a fundamental, like improvisation. It's improvisational. There's always an improvisational element in blues, always an improvisational element in jazz. And to me, that's the basis of almost everything that you hear, you know. So that's why it's interesting to me. It continues to be interesting to me. It's endless, you know. So.
Yeah. Brandon, want to add something to that?
I think you said it. That is American music right there. Yeah.
Not that, you know, there's anything
wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting too, because when you start looking at it, so blues, gospel, jazz, New Orleans music, you know, those are all sort of American art forms that have so many different influences from different places, you know. Predominantly, you know, there's a strong African influence in all of that music. And me, as a drummer, that's very appealing to me because of the rhythm, you know. There's Appalachian music, you know, all of those things. There's so many different elements that are rolled into blues and jazz. And a lot of them also, like I said, share a common thread with gospel music and what came out of the churches, you know. And I think if you want to get to sort of the heart of the American musical diaspora, if you will, those two art forms right there, blues and jazz, sort of encapsulate it very well. And then you'll notice when you're listening to other genres of music, you can hear the influences coming from jazz and coming from blues and coming from gospel all over pop music. You know, we wouldn't have a lot of the songs that we hear on the radio that we think are so great if it hadn't been for the foundation that blues and jazz laid for musicians to build upon.
I think so. Oh, okay. We'll bring it in.
One more time for Brandon Ailey on drums. Woo! Dave Monsey on bass. Kenny Withrow, guitar. All right. Okay, we have a few minutes more for, how about a student question or two or three? Any students have any questions?
First of all, as a drummer, I'm a little hard of hearing, so I'm going to come back over here. I heard something about figuring out how to play, but... Oh, you mean that little thing I was doing? I watched, when I was younger, I would go, one of the best things you can do, and what I did a lot, luckily because I grew up in Dallas, I could go and watch other musicians play. And so there was a couple of jazz clubs. There was this place called Strictly Taboo that I used to go to, and I would see some of the drummers do those things, and then I'd go home, I'd be excited because I saw something new, and I'd go home and try to, I want to try that, and so, and I think it's just important to just kind of figure out different ways to get different sounds out of the instrument that the normal sound that you always hear everybody doing. So I really like the cymbals when you in a quiet part of the song or the end of the song when you kind of hit them on the side. It makes it really like a chime sound. So yeah, and as musicians, that's going to be the best way that you grow is by watching and then seeing what you like and putting it in your toolbox and then just trying to imitate it. And the most important thing is what I was going to say earlier when we were talking about improvisation is if you mess up, it's okay. Like when we were all kids and we were playing together as friends, like we just went for it. And sometimes one or two of us would make a terrible, awful mistake in the middle of a jam.
What happened today?
But that's how we taught each other how to...
Today, it happens in the moment today.
No, it didn't. No, everything was fine. So somebody take this mic away from me, or I'll just sit here and talk your whole time away.
Nice. I love it. I love that idea, though. Just use the instrument in, of course, the standard ways, and learn that part of it through whatever means. But ultimately, the sky's the limit when it really comes down to it. I mean, the only limitation is your own imagination. And I'm a big proponent of imagination. You know, play the bottom of the cymbal, play the stands themselves, the other side of the head, you know, whatever, and get some other sounds. You know, why not?
Yeah, and for bass, when bass solos happen, you always hear. You know, so I started doing. Something like that, so it's not just the same old.
Different sounds. Yeah. Answer your question. Awesome. Yeah.
Did that help?
Cool. Good question. Any others? Is that a hand going up over there somewhere? Yeah. Is that Luke there? Yeah. Or who? Orange shirt, orange jacket. Your hand was up, right? Yeah.
How much percentage of your songs are improvised? It's like I do feel like a lead, but like a basic melody, but then like I start
What percentage of of a given song is improvised versus a melody or something prepared? What percentage would you, on average, or what you play today?
Today, it's very sketches of the melody and as minimal as possible.
And mostly improvised.
And get to the improvising as soon as possible.
That's a question. That's pretty.
That one, but but in terms of writing songs, in our band, we would actually have improvised sections of songs, and even like a portion of the set where this song, then we write a question mark for song number 5. But some songs we would leave open for that reason, so we didn't know what would happen when we get to the section every time, and we wouldn't talk about it.
I like that. How cool is that? So your set list is no set list, or at least for that part of it. You know, your song, space, and then whatever happens, happens. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna borrow that one.
Nice.
I like that. That's a great idea.
Well, what ends up happening is people come back to see you again and again because they don't want to miss. You might do that one thing that you never did before that you only did one time, right?
And we'll probably never do it again.
Right, you'll probably never do it again, so we better be there to see it.
Right, just in case.
It's true.
I love because it's gone.
It's
It won't come back. I love that. Okay, I saw a hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Who would you say you listen to the most?
Who do you listen to the most? Yeah, and that could be all three of those guys.
I would say my biggest influences throughout life, probably Miles Davis is probably my favorite musician overall. Just in terms of the different phases he went through and always looked forward all the way until he was doing hip hop at the very end and things like that. So him and his guitarist, John McLaughlin is my favorite guitarist because he also learned from Miles and went from big band to playing a Miles band, to playing the Electric Miles, to doing studying Eastern music and doing Eastern music with Mahavishnu Orchestra and a band called Shakti. So I'd say John McLaughlin and Miles Davis are probably my biggest influence. But bands, King Crimson, absolutely obsessed over King Crimson, especially the album Beat and Discipline. Anybody wants to check that out? I don't know who asked me that question, but listen to those records. It's good. It's good stuff.
Cool. Miles big for me too because of what he said, because he just covered so much ground. I love Duke Ellington, and for bass specifically, I love Paul Chambers and James Jamerson. Probably my favorite bass players. Yeah.
Well, two very different. Talk about James Jamerson for
James Jamerson was the guy who played on all the Motown. There was really just a few musicians who played on, I don't know, when everybody's age is so. Motown was throughout the 60s and 70s, just tons of hit songs. I'm sure you've all heard them, even if you don't know you have. James Jamerson sort of developed they only had a core group of musicians, that played on all that stuff. And James Jamerson was the bass player who brought first of all, the bass was really loud in the mix. They had the bass crank in the mix and very melodic, and all the stuff that you still, highly influential, you'll still hear his style on a Dua Lipa song or anything, new. So he's.
For those like the old Aretha Franklins and Stevie Wonder, and
yeah.
a ton of those Motowns, a ton of them, the old R&B artists.
Yeah, just a core group of musicians who sounded great on every, changed their style for the different the songs and sounded amazing on all those songs. And so, yeah.
Want to jump in, Brandon?
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure, Miles. I mean, that when we were in high school and we all started listening to, you know, Miles, that, for me, that's what opened my ears up to what improvisation could sound like, since we're talking about improvisation. I mean, there was so much going on so many of those records. I mean, he had straight ahead records, you know, depending on what phase he was in, but you know, some of those records are just like, wow, I want to do something like that. And so we kind of tried to do that, and by trying to do that, we made those mistakes I was talking about, and we learned to be better. And but besides that, I think for me personally as a drummer, like New Orleans is the place, and I go there whenever I can to get rejuvenated. And so any and all music out of New Orleans for me is the biggest influence. I can't even like take it to a single artist. Just everything coming out of New Orleans is the big influence. That's what, if you didn't know, that's where the drum set was invented also, by the way. So as a drummer, that's like sacred ground for me, you know.
I love it. All right, I saw one more hand go up enthusiastically, so we're running out of time, but someone's hand over here went up. Are you still there?
Right there.
It was yours? Yeah, I think it was yours.
Before everyone, what inspired you to play music?
What inspires everyone? You might have heard it. I think they kind of covered that, right? In other words, someone said, how do you listen to? Is there something else other than music that might inspire you? Let's rephrase the question that way. And maybe you mean that. Do you mean what inspires you in life? Maybe the sun or nature or, I don't know, anything else that's maybe yoga? I don't know.
Was that the whole question?
That's sufficient? What inspires you?
Yeah, what inspires
What inspires you? What inspires you in the broadest sense?
Yeah. It is. Well, what inspires me is music is another way of expressing, you know, and that's why we're all here, is to be human and express. You know, it's really the best thing. And music is a whole other way to express. And it is literally, to me, multi-dimensional activity. You can have 5 people all speaking music at the same time, and we all understand each other at the same moment. And that, you know, you can't do that with words. So it's a different level of communicating that is just more universal. And so so the inspiration is, when can I do that? And what can I do to make that better? So, yeah.
It's just the best thing I ever found. I think when I started playing with people when I was probably about 13, and I first played with other people, it was just the best thing, and also it's endless. You know, you can get better endlessly and be inspired endlessly, but that's really, I just think it's the greatest thing. It's the most fun.
So I kind of came at it from a situation where my mother was a professional musician in Dallas, and her mother was a composer and a choir director, and my mom grew up in a house with 2 baby grand pianos in the front room. And so I just grew up around music all the time. And when I was little, my mom would just get me and say, hey, we got to go do this show. And I'd grab my drums and off we went. So for as long as I can remember, I've always been like, I'm going to be a musician. I'm still saying I'm going to be a musician after all these years. And then, you know, just everything these guys said. I mean, they're just, you know, I taught in public school, taught music for years, and I kept telling, one of the things I kept telling all my students was like, you can do this for the rest of your life. It's one of those activities like that no matter how old you are, you can still have a wonderful experience playing music, you know, and you can never, ever stop learning. No matter how much you practice and you think, I've got it all, then there's always something. So in that sense, that's what really inspires me, is the yearning to always find something new. And it's always right around the corner with music. So I'll just leave that right there.
Good question. Put your hands together for these guys one more time. Okay. So we are out of time. However, I would like to do one more thing since we're in this moment. We're going to do a short version of this. I would like to do with you guys a question mark.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Sure.
Can the 4 of us do a question mark?
Absolutely.
Is it okay if we do a question mark? Let's have this, right? We did 3 tunes. I'm going to do a question mark. We got that part of the set. Let's do it. No playing, no rehearsal. They need to know. We're going to do a question mark. That's sweet. Yeah.
can go a lot of different ways. It
Not
depends on
just go where it goes.
who starts the conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. One more time. Brandon Ailey on drums. Dave Monsey on bass. Kenny Withrow on guitar. Let me hear you. Put your hands together for them. Yeah. Thank you guys.